7 Secrets of Vishnu by Devdutt Pattanaik. Chapter 6, Krishna's Secret. Know the thought behind the action. Part 1. The story of Krishna is spread across two epics, the Bhagavad and the Mahabharata. Bhagavad refers to Krishna as the flute-playing, playful, lovable, mischievous, romantic cowherd who loves butter. Mahabharata refers to Krishna as the conch-blowing city builder, warrior, leader, philosopher, statesman and charioteer covered with the grime of war. Together, these two Krishnas create the Purna Avatar, the most wholesome manifestation of God. But Krishna is an unusual God. He challenges all conventional notions of divinity and appropriate social conduct. His name literally translates as black, challenging the traditional Indian discomfort with the dark complexion. He is visualized as either cowherd or charioteer, never as priest or king, a deliberate association with the lower strata of society. His mother is not his real mother, his beloved is not his wife, and the women he rescues are neither his subjects nor members of his family. His lovemaking is not really lovemaking. His war is not really war. There is always more that meets the eye. And so, only Krishna, of all the avatars, sports a smile, a mischievous, meaningful smile. There is always more that meets the eye when Krishna is around. While Ram is called Maryada Purushotham, he who upholds rules of society at any cost, Krishna is called Leela Purushotham, he who enjoys the game of life. Unlike Ram, who is serious and serene and evokes respect, Krishna is adorable and rakish and evokes affection. Ram's story takes place in the second quarter of the world, the Treta Yuga, when the bull of Dharma stands on 3 legs. Krishna's story takes place in a later, third quarter of the world, the Dwapar Yuga, when the bull of Dharma stands on 2 legs. Krishna's world is thus closer to the world we live in, the final quarter, or Kali Yuga, and shares the hazy morality and ethics we encounter today. In this world, the concept of dharma becomes even more difficult to express and institute, and this is most evident in the story of Yayati. Yayati, an ancestor of Krishna, is cursed by his father-in-law to become old and impotent when he is discovered having a mistress. Yayati begs his sons to suffer the curse on his behalf so that he can retain his youth. Yadu, the eldest son, refuses to do so because he feels his father should respect the march of time and not feed on the youth of his children. Puru, the youngest son, however, agrees to accept his father's old age. Puru's sacrifice makes Yayati so happy that years later, when he has had his fill of youth, he declares that the younger Puru will be his heir and not the older Yadu. Further, he curses Yadu that none of his children or his children's children will be entitled to wear the crown. Krishna, being Yadu's descendant, is therefore never king. Kingship passes on to Puru's descendants, the Pandavas and Kauravas, even though time and again they demonstrate their unworthiness to wear the crown. What seems a good thing in Ram's Yuga becomes a bad thing in Krishna's Yuga. Ram's unquestioning obedience of his father transforms him into God. But Puru's unquestioning obedience results in collapse of society. Dashrath requests Ram's obedience so that he can uphold his word. Yayati, however, demands the obedience of his children for his own pleasure. Yayati exploits the rule for his own benefit, whereas Dashrath enforces the rule so that royal integrity is never questioned. The rule, obey the father, resonates dharma in Dashrath's case, but not so in Yayati's. Yayati's conduct results in a society where the letter of the law becomes more important than the spirit of the law. This is the world of Krishna, a world where what matters more than the deed is the thought behind the deed. The story of Krishna begins in Mathura. the city of the Yadavas. It is foretold that the 8th child of Devaki will kill her elder brother, Kansa. Consumed by fear, Kansa kills all of Devaki's children as soon as they are born. The night Devaki delivers her 8th son, her husband Vasudev takes him across the river Yamuna to Gokul. There, he exchanges his son for the daughter of Yashoda and cowherd chief Nanda, who is born the same night. Yashoda wakes up to find Krishna in her arms. She assumes this is her son and raises him as a cowherd. Kans, meanwhile, tries to kill the girl he finds in Devaki's arms, but the child slips out of his grasp, rises into the air, transforms into a goddess, and informs him that his killer is safe. Kansa fumes in frustration as he realizes all his attempts to change his destiny have come to naught. Krishna, as a consequence of his father's actions, ends up with 2 mothers: Devaki, who gives birth to him, and Yashoda, who raises him. Devaki is a woman of noble rank. Yashoda is a common milkmaid. Devaki represents all the qualities one is born with. Yashoda represents all the qualities one acquires in life. Thus, Krishna's divinity, rooted in Devaki's blood and Yashoda's milk, acknowledges both nature and nurture. We are all a combination of what we are born with, as well as what we are raised to be. Our natural disposition is known as Varna, while the cultural indoctrination is Jati. Krishna is, by Varna, a nobleman, but by Jati, a cowherd. Though nobleman, he can never be king. Though cowherd, he can always lead. Our behavior towards others is based on what we see and how we process our observation. But not all things can be seen. Jati can be seen, but not Varna. One can see behavior, but one has no access to beliefs. A man can dress as a cowherd and talk like a cowherd, but he may at heart be a prince. We will never know unless we open our eyes to this possibility. In Krishna's narratives, butter, churned out of milk, is the symbol of love. The milkmaids of his village hoard the butter in pots hung high from ceilings, out of everyone's reach. They are only for sale. Krishna protests and demands its free distribution. And so, with a naughty glint in his eye, he climbs on the shoulders of his friends, reaches up to the pots and breaks them with glee, letting the butter of love flow out. As Krishna grows up, the metaphor of love changes. Pots are no longer broken. Instead, clothes are stolen. An embarrassing situation for the gopis bathing in the Yamuna and everyone hearing the story, until we realize that in the language of symbols, clothes represent our public face. Krishna notices the sensitive hearts hiding behind each and every public face. This heart is sensitive, yearning to give affection and receive it. Hearts resist and tongues complain. Don't steal our butter, Krishna. Don't steal our clothes, Krishna. No one wants to be free with love. No one wants to expose the vulnerable heart. Everyone marches into Yashoda's house, demanding that Krishna be restrained. Yashoda tries to stop Krishna, but fails. She binds him to a drum, locks him inside the house, but Krishna remains the relentless Makhan Chor and Chit Chor, he who steals butter and he who steals hearts. Until all defenses break down, until there are no pots, no clothes, no stinginess with affection, only an open invitation to a heart full of buttery love. When the heart is opened up, when love flows into it and from it, a sense of security prevails. With security comes freedom. There is no need to pretend. We can be ourselves. There is no desire to force our wills on anyone. We accept and embrace everyone. We include people. We allow them to be themselves because we are accepted and embraced by God. The result is Mijares in the flowery meadow on the banks of the Yamuna, known as Madhuvan. The Mijares, where Krishna plays the flute surrounded by a circle of dancing milkmaids, is a symbolic representation of absolute spontaneity. No formal relationship dictates Krishna's affection for the milkmaids. Unfettered by social restriction, it is created by emotions that are simple, innocent, with no underlying motive. That is why it takes the form of a circle, the most spontaneous of natural shapes. Between God in the center and his devotees in the circumference, only a radius of mutual, unconditional affection prevails. So long as the milkmaids love Krishna unconditionally without fetters, he multiplies himself and dances with each one of them, making each one feel completely and fully loved. But when they become possessive and refuse to share him with others, Krishna disappears and fills the women with despair. When realization dawns and they beg forgiveness, Krishna returns to Madhuvan to dance the dance of love. The Mijares takes place outside the village, in the forest, at night, away from familiar surroundings. Yet, the women feel safe. They are unthreatened by the law of the jungle. They have faith in Krishna and no fear. When Krishna plays the flute in the middle of the jungle, love, not force, prevails. The weakest, the most unfit, are not afraid. They can sing, dance, and thrive in joyous abandon. But Krishna's abode is not the jungle. First he lives in the village of Gokul, and later his parents migrate to Vrindavan, as Gokul becomes increasingly unsafe. These villages are domesticated spaces. Domestication of the land involves violence, the forcible removal or suppression of wild forces that threaten the settlement. Krishna is threatened several times in his childhood. He is threatened by a wet nurse, Putna, who carries poison in her breasts. He is threatened by natural forces, a whirlwind, a forest fire, and torrential rain. He is threatened by animals, a wild horse, an errant calf, a ferocious bull, a python, a crane, and a donkey. He is even threatened by cartwheels rolling down the street. As Krishna defends himself and protects his village from these various threats, he becomes violent. The demons are killed or driven away. The wild beasts are subdued and their spirit is broken as they are tamed. The forest fire is swallowed and a mountain raised to protect the village from the wet torrential downpour. Thus Krishna acknowledges the violence that is implicit in human survival. More than the act of violence, what matters is the thought behind the violence. The demons seek to hurt Krishna because his existence threatens Kansa. Their violence is rooted in Kansa's fear and his refusal to accept his fate. Such violence is adharma. Krishna's violence is defensive, rooted in the human need to survive and thrive. He does not want to hurt or exploit anyone. His violence is therefore dharma. When Kansa hears of this remarkable cowherd in Vrindavan who kills demons and tames wild beasts and holds mountains up with his little finger, he is convinced that this is his long-lost nephew, his nemesis. Determined to change his fate and intent on killing him, he invites Krishna to a wrestling match in his city of Mathura and sends a royal chariot to fetch him. But things do not go as planned. The charismatic lad not only overpowers the mighty wrestlers of Mathura, he also kills the royal elephant, breaks the royal bow, and finally attacks and kills the wicked king, to the delight of all the Yadavas who have grown tired of Kansa's excesses. The killing of Kansa is unique because it is the only story in Hindu mythology where a father figure is killed. Unlike Ram, who submits to Dashrath, and Yadu, who submits to Yayati, Krishna refuses to submit to Kansa. This tale marks a shift in thinking, where the younger generation refuses to suffer the tyranny of the older generation. This makes Krishna a radical hero in the Hindu spiritual landscape. When the royal chariot carrying Krishna rolled out of Vrindavan for Mathura, the milkmaids had feared that Krishna would never return. Krishna had assured them that he would, as soon as the wrestling match was over. But after the killing of Kansa, Krishna's true identity is revealed. He is Devaki's son, not Yashoda's. He is a Yadava nobleman, not a common cowherd. Destiny has other plans for him, and he must submit to it. He cannot return to the land of milk and butter and cows and milkmaids, the land of his pleasure. His tryst with kings has begun. Kansa's father-in-law, Jarasandha, attacks the city of Mathura to avenge Kansa's death and burns it to the ground. Rather than fight to the death, Krishna withdraws from the battlefield and takes the Yadavas westwards to the safety of the island city of Dwarka, far from Jarasandha's influence. This display of discretion over valor is uncharacteristic of warriors and once again positions Krishna as an unconventional hero, one who accepts the inglorious epithet of Ranchod Rai, the warrior who withdrew from battle. Krishna lives to fight another day.
जब चाहो ऑन हो जाओ, एपिक ऑन चलाओ. Available across all devices.